Thanks for watching our video. Make sure to subscribe to the Old Stone Church YouTube channel.
Just 2 or 3 Sundays ago, the good folks of the Old Stone Church, during one of their Sunday morning worship services, were wrestling with a question I believe that almost every Christian has wrestled with at one time or another. The question is, why? Why? Why did Jesus have to die? Why did Jesus have to die in the way that he died? Why did Jesus' Father in heaven allow Jesus to die? Why did God allow his Son to die there on that human compost heap, Golgotha? Why? It's a question many have wrestled with for a long, long time. Theologians, they come up with all sorts of answers to help us grapple with the question why. Some people call it substitutionary atonement. Jesus had to die. He was sin on the cross, says the Scripture, and therefore he took our sin into death with him. Substitutionary atonement. I was talking to our elder, Carl Johnson, just before worship today, who leads Segway Cleveland. If you ever see him buzzing out around in the square, that's Carl. And he says to the people who take his tours with him that if you lean back on your Segway, it'll go back quite easily. But you have to be careful. You might back into something and you'll fall right over and you'll smack your head on the concrete. Nobody wants to do that. But Carl says, I've already done that, so you don't have to. That's substitutionary atonement. Jesus already died for our sin, so we don't have to, so that we can live in the freedom and the peace of God. Some people say that Jesus died on the cross as an act of grace, to show us that our salvation has very little to do with us and everything to do with him. We can't earn it, we can't buy it, we don't necessarily deserve it or not. It's just a done deal for us in Jesus Christ. That's why when I lived down in Savannah, Georgia, a number of years ago, and the people used to come up to me down in Georgia and say, "Hey, Dr. Mark, when were you saved?" I could quite easily say, I was saved 2,000 years ago when Jesus died on the cross for me. It had nothing to do with me and everything to do with him. Why, we ask? Why did Jesus die on the cross? Why did he have to die on the cross? Longtime Christians have wrestled with that question. Newcomers often struggle with it. In fact, I remember seeing Grace sitting with her parents today, one of the first Good Friday services that my daughter attended. She was maybe your age, Grace, 7 years, 8 years, 9 years, somewhere in there. And I remember after the service, my daughter was very quiet and her eyes were filled with tears. And I said, "Sweetheart, what's the matter?" And she asked the question, why did Jesus have to die? It's an important question that I think we'll wrestle with throughout our whole faith journey. But maybe the question isn't why. Maybe we're actually posing the wrong question altogether. Maybe the question of Good Friday is what? What actually happened? Maybe we'll never know why, or understand why, or comprehend the why, but we can see the what. We know what happened, and we know what has happened in the world because Jesus went to Golgotha, because Jesus died on the cross. We know the what of Good Friday, don't we? We know that that day love was nailed to a cross. Love was nailed up with nails through his hands and his feet. A Roman centurion pierced love in the side. And John's gospel says blood and water poured forth onto the parched soil of the earth, which drank up the blood and the water of Jesus Christ. We know what happened that day, and we know what has happened because he went to the cross on that very first dark Friday. We know that when love was broken, love was shared throughout the world. In fact, just a few weeks ago, we were struggling with the question, I shared with the congregation an art piece that I'd seen in an art gallery years and years ago. It was a sculpture made of glass and mirrors. The artist had taken a perfectly good window, a perfectly good mirror or two, and the artist did something that was almost an incredible act of violence. The artist took a hammer and smashed the glass, and then took a hammer and smashed the mirror into the 1,000 shards, and then picked up those glass pieces and glued them together in a sculpture. And even the sculpture itself looked violent and treacherous and terrifying. I imagined to myself how difficult it would have been for that artist to carry that sculpture into the art gallery. The artist must have had gloves and perhaps some protective clothing so that he wouldn't get sliced up when he brought it in. But I also noticed when that art piece was on display, there was a light shining on that sculpture. And though there were shards and broken glass everywhere, they were reflecting light in all directions. There was light being shone on the ceiling, light on the walls, light upon the very ground which we stood. And most importantly, everyone who came into the room was delighted to find that the light was shining on them. That's what happened on that first Good Friday when love was shattered on that cross, that the light of God now could reach all of us. That's why we're here today, remembering, even though we don't know why Jesus did what he did, we know what happened because he did what he did. I shared with the congregation a song that was written by one of my favorite songwriters, Leonard Cohen, that every time I hear it, I can't help but imagine Jesus singing it to us from the other side of Good Friday and from the other side of the open tomb of Easter morning. I can't help but hear Jesus talking about that love that was shattered so that it could become vast and reach every single living soul on this planet, and not just for one time, but for all time. Well, I greet you from the other side of sorrow and despair, with a love so vast and shattered, it will reach you everywhere. And I sing this for the captain whose ship has not been built, for the mother in confusion, her cradle is still unfilled, for the heart with no companion, for the soul without a king, for the prima ballerina who can't dance to anything. Yes, I greet you from the other side of sorrow and despair, with a love so vast and shattered, it will reach you everywhere. I greet you from the other side of sorrow and despair, with a love so vast and shattered, it will reach you everywhere. Folks, I don't know if we will ever come to any conclusion on why Jesus had to die there at Golgotha. But if we look and we come and we participate in Good Friday worship and we read the story and we go back to it over and over again, we certainly can see the what of Good Friday. Love was vast and shattered so that it could reach us everywhere. Amen.
Thanks for watching our video. Make sure to subscribe to get the latest and greatest videos from the Old Stone Church. And if you feel blessed by our message, please go to theoldstonechurch.org and click Donate. God bless you today and forever. The Old Stone Church. We've been loving Christ and serving City since 1820.